Welcome to the Mundus Fractura Lore Guide. This week on Lore Guide, we will take a sweeping look at the area of Mundus known as the Western Vale. The Western Vale, or otherwise known as the West Valley, is the expansive habitable lowland region to the west and north of the Great Crater. This enormous valley splits the northern and western Breathless Peaks in two. These sections, known as the Rim Breathless and the Eminence Breathless regions, encircle this habitable zone. The vale itself is divided into 5 distinct sections: the North Plains or Tartera, the Midland, the Vatnaland or the Alliance Lands, the Southern Plains or Sletur, and the Southern Wastes, otherwise known as Adimurk. A quick aside before I continue. Please bear in mind that I will only be providing a quick overview of this area of Mundus. This is an enormous and varied swath of the planet, far too large to go into great depth here. But rest assured, we will have a much more in-depth look at each region in future lore guides. Now let us continue. At the Vale's heart is the Vatnaland, or the Alliance Lands. This area would be the most well-known region of the planet to those of you who follow our game sessions. These are the core realms controlled by the Eastern and Western Alliance. The area is famous for its twin landmarks of the Great Freshwater Lake and the planet's largest known residuum blight. It is also considered to be the birthplace of humanity, though this is actually incorrect, as veterans of the Lore Guide series will know that humanity appeared on the planet in the Great Crater. Now, as this area has had a detailed focus on it in many of our past lore guides and game sessions, I will move on to our next region. To the north of the Vatnaland, we come to the Midland, also called the Midlands. It is a diverse region, both in culture and landscape, bounded by the Eminence Breathless Peaks to the north and west, the Residuum Blight Range in the south, the Midland Wall Range in the northeast, and the Rim Breathless Peaks in the east. Geographic points of note for this area include the mighty Clan River, which directly feeds into the Great Lake of the Vatnaland to the south, the Deep Burrow and Sleeping Eye craters, the Green Drop and Lost Wells, the agriculturally productive Nocturna Hills, the Rise Escarpment, and the dwarven, held lands of the Green Mountains and Green Plateau. The Midland's dominant faction, by population, is a group of magic and psionic phobic extremists known as the Ascetic. The Ascetic's politics and peoples are tightly controlled by this primarily human-dominated ideology. They style themselves a natural nation, free of the corrupting influences of the infernal controlling forces of magic and psionics. The lands from the Green Mountains north are Alliance-controlled, under direction of the dwarven Jade Hammer clan. There presently is a fragile peace between the Ascetics and the Jade Hammer clan. The tranquility, held in place nearly entirely by the dwarves, stranglehold control over the natural and nearly unbreachable fortification that are the Green Mountains. To the north of the Midland is an expansive grasslands reminiscent of the North American Great Plains on Earth. The area known as the North Plains, or Tartera to the locals, is dominated by massive oceans of grassland and expansive forested areas. Though seemingly featureless and boring to the eyes of the ignorant, this sweeping, majestic landscape is home to many landmarks of note. The region's 2 snaking rivers, known locally only as the 2 Rivers of Many Names, wind a path across the vast prairies, connecting its peoples and feeding the lands. These serpentine waters are accented by lakes and what the local Kintaurus call bulges, wider lake-like sections of the meandering river. The reaches further boast 2 of the 3 known routes out of the Western Vale to the coastal regions of Mundus. These so-called passes through the grey cyclopean crystals are aptly named the Vile Pass and the shifting gap, and can just barely be considered passes, the routes being filled with all manner of peril, as their names would indicate. But more on them another time. The lands of the northern reaches are the ancestral home of the Taurus species, and to this day hold the largest population of the species on the planet. They share the lands with vast herds of the non-sentient bovine species, such as the aruach and bison. The northern reaches are strikingly beautiful and fascinating. I, for one, cannot wait to be able to explore them with you in the future. South of the core alliance lands of the Vatna land, a vast high-altitude open steppe can be found, the southern plains, or Sletur, in Old Dirkari. The area is bordered by the eminence Breathless Peaks to the west and the Rim Breathless, or locally called Rainbow Wall Peaks, in the east. The northern border is marked by the mountains and fortress city, both known as Kalikar. To the south, the border is defined by the mountains and keep of Tooth Wall. Though similar at a glance to the vast plains of the northern reaches, the two regions are very different indeed. This high arid plateau is a harsh place to exist, especially in the broad northern steppe. Though full of plant and animal life, this northern half of the region gets very little rain. There are vast migratory herds of all manner of mammals and large ambulant species of fungus, but there are also a wide array of predators to match. The environment of this region becomes more hospitable at about its north-south midpoint. Marked by the Lake Infras crater, the region becomes increasingly green from this point south, and especially in its heavily forested western hills. The three and only rivers of the southern plains reside in its southern hemisphere, those being the Rainbow Wall River, the Tooth Wall River, and the Estual River. The area and its peoples are firmly under the influence of the Alliance. It is a multicultural, multi-species land, with humans, Drekar, and Felidae making up the vast bulk of the population. The Alliance built rapid transport lines spans the length of the southern plains, connecting its three major centers of Kalikar, Hoofthorn, and Toothwall. This region is home to a global oddity, the crater known as Edla, and its great temple of the same name. It is a nexus point, a grand gathering place for all dragonkind. From Drekar to ancient worm, chromatics to metallics, and all in between and outside. No draconic blood will be spilled by dragonkin on this holy site. It is a secretive and sacred place, for which it is said no non-draconic has ever laid eyes upon. Last, in our brief flyover of the Vale, we come to the southern wastes, or Ademurk, in the old tongue of the elves. It is a parched, hot, uninviting, and violent region at the valley's southern termination point. The Toothwall Keep of the southern plains was specifically erected to keep out the denizens of the wastes. It is covered in great sand dunes, twisted hoodoos, jagged sharp mountains, and in its extreme east, foul seas so laden with minerals and salts that great crystalline iceberg-like structures form and roam its treacherous waters. 5 comparatively short rivers flow in the wastes, 4 located near the seas on the eastern side of the poorly named Friendly Mountains. The 5th is located on the far western edge of the valley in the Temple Mountains. It is more accurately 2 rivers which merge to form one, collectively referred to as the Yig. Deep in the unnamed southern Waste Mountains lay the Vale's third and final pass to the coastal regions beyond the Breathless Peaks. The Teknastai discovered this pass during their global reign and dubbed it the Omegulegged Pass, or in the common tongue, the Impossible Pass. It is unclear if it is the pass that is impossible to traverse, or if it is in reference to the approach through the wastes, or possibly due to the fact that the southern nameless mountains make access nearly impossible. But these are questions for another time. Moving on. The area is thought to be the ancient ancestral home of the halfling peoples. There are fragmented records that sometime during the Third Era, known as Atok, a cataclysm befell the region, which altered it from a temperate verdant land into the surface world hellscape it is today. Despite the abhorrent conditions, life finds a way in this part of the world. Civilization, or some semblance of it, has managed to persist in this place despite its horrid nature. There are 5 major population centers in the wastes which have developed in the higher and cooler climes, each alongside one of the 5 regional rivers. In the Friendly Mountains, we can find the cities of Trapwater, of the Trapwater River, Cold Wind, of the Happy Dale River, the city and river called Go Away, and finally, Southgift City on the Dry River. In the Western Temple Mountains, the Waste's largest settlement can be found. The filthy and barbarous cutthroat city of the Altar of Yig sprawls along the Blood of Yig River. It is said that the citizenry is as vile and wicked as any in the Hells. Truly, the southern wastes are as full of tales as they are of horrors, and be sure we will be visiting this wretched hive again in the future. But for now, that is all for this time. I hope you have enjoyed this brief look at the collective lands of the Western Vale. Stay tuned for future Lore Guide shorts, and thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.